What's up, yo? Welcome back to the No Bullshit Podcast, man. If this not your first time here, welcome back. If this is your first time here, introduce myself. It's Kai.
It's Conklin.
And like I said, no bullshit, man. Let's get right into it, right? Building off of last, a couple days ago's episode, talking about NBA basketball, man. And I feel like right after the All Star break, I feel like this is the perfect time to really, talk about our MVP ladders, right? Like our top five, MVP candidates, and the reasons why we have them where we have them. So, I feel like it's only right, I pass it off over to you, Coughlin, and you give me, your top five.
Yeah, man. So I don't know, cause like we talked about this like for the past week, and it's like, hey, man, it's kind of tough. We're like flip flopping, who we have some of our guys, and Kai's going to get into like in a little bit here about how he kind of like made his top five, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before we came on to record this pod, I was like, shoot, I had a set five, but now I'm looking at, I'm like, shoot, it might not look right. But
Yeah.
you know what? I had a reason for why it was that five for a reason, so I'm just stick with it, and I'm gonna go from bottom to top. So my five is Giannis,
Okay.
Brunson, Jokic, Shy, and then Luca.
Okay. 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 I'm not gonna lie to you, my boy. Number two shocked me. You know what I mean? But I'll give my top five. I had Giannis at number one. I had Jokic at number two. I had Luka at number three. Shea at number four, and my number five was actually Jason Tatum.
Ooh, see, yeah. I mean, that's the thing because I had a few honorable mentions,
Hmm.
and it's like obviously if you have like the number one seed, right,
Yeah.
in either conference, you got like one of the best player on that team got to be somewhere in the top five, right? But
Yeah.
I'll like get into it a little bit later, but like Tatum, honorable mention for me. Another
Hmm.
honorable mention, Anthony Edwards,
Okay.
right? And then I think we kind of discussed it briefly before we started recording, and it's like it's kind of sad to see Joel Embiid get hurt, right? Because he was
100%.
he was a runaway leader in the MVP ladder, man.
Listen,
But
and as a Sixers fan, you know what I mean, just having the big man go down, it sucks. It's funny, talk about my honorable mentions. w- my top four was pretty solid. Like when I was just going off the top of my head, and like you alluded to earlier, I built a little bit of a system as to my ranking, um, but you know coming up with that number five spot and a guy that I feel as though who would slide in at number five. It was really between Jason Tatum, Jalen Brunson, and Donovan Mitchell. You know what I mean? Like all three of these guys have been balling. All three of their teams have really been making noise in the league. But like I said, I kind of made up a little bit of system where I took the box stats, points, rebounds, assists, block steals, and then field goal percentage. And I took the number that each player was ranked at, right? So obviously, the lower the number you have, the more well rounded and the more dominant your game is. Therefore, it would, really propel you higher up on my ladder. And that's how I really, I first decided to do that when it comes to, Tatum, Brunson, and Mitchell. But then I was like, well, let me look at these other four guys. And crazy enough, like the numbers matched my rankings more or less. You know what I mean? Like for example, uh, Giannis and Jokic. When I just took points, rebounds, assists, and field goal percentage, they both were tied at 35, and that made a lot of sense to me because I was really just going back and forth between these two guys. Like, in my opinion, these are the two best players in basketball right now, and this season has been, the biggest showing of that. And once I kind of opened up to, blocks and steals, that's where, Giannis really, took that little bit of lead where Giannis's score ended up being 72 and Jokic is at 98. If you're wondering Luka's, total was 155. If we just count offensive stats, he was actually 75. Shea was 139. If you just count offensive stats, he was 103. And Tatum, now this was a little bit of a gap, right? Because I do feel as though these four players have been head and shoulders the four best players in the league. It was a little bit of a gap. Tatum comes in at 279, but just off his offensive stats, it was actually 146. And then mixed in with seeding. Like I believe the lowest seeding is Luka with the number 6 seed. But listen, we've seen number 6 seed led teams have an MVP, so that wouldn't be anything groundbreaking. But I'm curious as to why Brunson at two. I'm curious.
Oh no, I have Brunson at 4.
Oh, you had him at four. Oh, okay, my bad. I thought okay, okay.
Oh no, no, I went from like what's it called
Oh,
from
you went 5
uh
to 1.
yeah, 5-1. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
shit! Wait. Okay, so what was? Just say it again. What was from 1 to 5?
Oh, okay, from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Mine was Luca, Shea,
Hmm.
Jokic, Brunson, Giannis.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So my number one was your number five. Okay.
yeah. So all right, so I guess I'll briefly get into it. So like
Hmm.
when making this list, I didn't also obviously you got to take account the stats, of course,
Yeah.
right? But I also took account of like the importance of like the player to that team, and obviously I'm not saying that Giannis is
Hmm.
not important to the Bucks at all because
Yeah.
he is their main guy. He is still the number one option. Let's not get it
Hmm.
twisted, right? But from what I've seen so far this season, just this season, I'm not looking at any other season, right? I'm
Hmm.
just looking at this season. I know the Bucks are they're third in the East right now, but they just don't look like the Bucks. They
Hmm.
just don't, right? Giannis is still going to be Giannis, but
Hmm.
you know, I don't know. The Bucks are, maybe it's not because of him necessarily, right? There's coaching involved, there's other players surrounding him involved, right? But I don't know. From my standpoint, from like just from the eye test, right? Even when Giannis is doing his thing, it's not the same that I've seen over the past few years, where it's like they've been clicking,
Hmm.
right? So that was my standpoint from that, right? And
Okay.
then going off just really quick on like some of the guys I have ahead of him, right? Talk about Jalen Brunson, man. Like I think I kind of alluded to him in our last video about how like
Hmm.
the Knicks are like one of the teams to watch out for, right? And Brunson, ever since Brunson has signed with the Knicks in free agency, I think last year, right?
Hmm.
He's been a monster, especially this season, man. Talking about a guy who, people don't really think much about until that one his last season with the Mavs in the playoff series. I think started off the Jazz and then going on to a few more go to the conference finals. He's been cooking. He's been developing really really nice, man, and he's gone on to become the number one option on that team, right? Talking about a next team who's I'm pretty sure ever since they got OG and Anunoby, they've been the number one defense. They've been probably the best. Well, besides the Celtics, of course, but probably one of the best teams in the whole league right now,
Hmm.
right? They're nothing to like sniff around about. So I just think the impact that Brunson has had for the next this season, like I said, it's emphasis on this season, right? And then obviously Jokic is Jokic. Jokic
Hmm.
is always going to be up there, right? I know that people has had him like 1, 2 in that range, right? Because Jokic, he's the type of guy where it's like he's going to dominate no matter what. There's no such thing. Like if you look at any player in the NBA,
Hmm.
there literally Jokic is never having a bad day.
Nah.
Never, never, because he's either going to get a crazy stat line on the points, or he's
Or
just going to
assists.
distribute and do like what 15 rebounds, 15 assists,
Hmm.
15 points or whatever. It's
Hmm.
crazy. He's literally one of the most efficient players in NBA history. Like
Oh,
you just don't see this at all,
no,
right?
no. I mean, and I feel like this is kind of groundbreaking because this is like
Mm-hmm.
out of all the episodes that we've done so far, this is like the first time where we've had like some level of discrepancy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where You know,
Hmm.
listen, it's honestly refreshing, man, because
Hmm.
especially in football, it would be like, oh, all our lists would be the same thing. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
listen, and I'll speak real fast on the whole Giannis thing and the Bucks. I
Yeah.
do agree. You know, the Bucks themselves have not been as dominant as we've seen in the past, but in a weird way, Giannis has. I don't think Giannis has ever been this dominant. Like just singularity as just him. As he has been this season. I feel like a lot of it is probably a little bit out of necessity. You know what I mean? Like he's had to done a little bit of a carry. You know what I mean? Like he has to show up on the defensive side. He has to show up on the offensive side. Like if you talk about players getting better, like I've never seen him distribute the basketball that at the level that he's done this season. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
having triple doubles, dropping 15 assists in a game, like that's not something that going into this season, talking about a two-time MVP and a Finals MVP. That's not something I really thought was in his game, right? And that's just goes to show whether it's because he's been in the lab or just because of out of straight necessity. He's shown those leaps in his game, right? And I feel like when it really just comes down to it, I feel as though Giannis is the best two-way player in the game. You know what I mean? When it comes to giving you buckets and stopping people from scoring, I feel like there's no player in the league that is on his level in terms of again that two-way ability. And yeah, it's so crazy because even with saying like the Bucks are not as dominant, like they're still the 3 seed. It's crazy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
most
Hmm.
teams that we talk about like this, whether it's the Lakers or the Warriors, like all these teams that they're just not themselves this season. They're like in the play-in situation. Like the Bucks are
Hmm.
still the cream of the crop in the league. But I definitely no absolutely no disrespect to Jalen Brunson and the Knicks and what they've been able to do. We talked about that in the last episode, but I do find that interesting. This is like the very first time like we've really had this level of discrepancy. What I mean with a take.
Yeah, man. Like you said, you know, it's like just going back to the Giannis thing, right? You know, it's like weird, but it's also interesting at the same time. Where it's like Giannis is getting better. Like I do agree with you with that. He's getting better distributing the ball. He's getting better. I think he's getting. So you say he's getting better on the offensive end. I think he's getting way better on the defensive end, and that's scary, right? You
Mm-hmm.
talking about a guy that wait, did he win? I'm pretty sure he did win the
Yeah.
defensive player of the year
Hmm.
before. Yeah, yeah. Which he's definitely up there right now,
Yeah.
right? You got
Easily.
to talk about that, right? But you know, like you said, it's scary that they're a third seed, but they don't look right,
Mm-hmm.
and that's insane. That's
Mm-hmm.
really insane, right? It goes to show how much talent, how much like despite the coaching and all that stuff, right? Their talent alone will show up,
Yeah.
right? Dame, he is in a little slump right now, but he'll get it clicking eventually, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
he is still adjusting to being that number two role instead of the number one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and I feel like both of them are right because
Oh yeah.
both of them are equally used to being the number one guy, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like a 1A 1B type of thing this season, right?
Yeah.
So getting some time to get used to with that, but you know. Enough to be honest. We can go all day about that, right? But
Yeah, I want
um,
to hear, what you got to say about your guy Luca, man. Because I'll
yeah,
tell you this right now: if it wasn't for the fact of seeding,
yeah.
Luca would be number one on my ladder, right? Like if he
Hmm.
was like a top two seed like the rest of these guys, he would easily be, my MVP.
Yeah, man, 100%. I totally agree with you, man. Like, sure, not even this season, the past couple seasons, right? If we had a not even three top five seed,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, I'll say this: um, past few years, leading up to now, this is definitely the best team Luca has had for
Mm-hmm.
sure, 100%. Because the teams that he had in the past, they were just not. I mean, people want to say about the KP and Brunson thing, right? But you have to also be mindful. Brunson didn't really become the player he was until very late into the last season he was in, which is into the
Yeah.
playoffs,
Yep.
right? And then KP, I don't think it was necessary neither, Luca or KP. So I think it was more so the coaching because
Hmm.
literally you got our former coach. I forgot his name. I
Is that
can't.
was that Rick Carlisle?
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
that you
Rick Carlisle. Yeah,
time?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So like we got him not even getting him at post ups. You got him standing in the corner. That's not his
Hmm.
game. That's not his game, right? So I think that was more due to coaching, right?
Hmm.
But this team right now, getting Kyrie was a very, very important thing to do
Hmm.
because you can argue like even if we still have Brunson, yes, it'll be better for a cap. Yes, he is a younger player, right? But the thing is that I'll take a healthy Kyrie all day,
Okay.
right? Right now. I'm
Hmm.
not talking about the future. I'm just talking right now. Win mode, championship mode. I'm taking Kyrie right now because
Hmm.
the way he's able to play at any type of pace, right?
Hmm.
Dictate the offense. He's been a people. We all know that Kyrie had his off the field antics and stuff like that, right?
Hmm.
But ever since the Mavericks traded for him, we all knew there was going to be it's going to be like a risk,
Yeah.
right? We didn't know it was going to happen. We didn't even know that we were able to get the extension, after the half, after the season was over, right? But he's coming along, buying to the to the team, to what we're trying to do, and he's been a great leader for us, right? And that's helped Luca. It's helped Luca become a better teammate, right?
Yeah.
Because we all seen that people talking about Luca's a great player, but sometimes the leadership can be suspect,
Yeah.
right? And that's definitely, you can argue that because people want to talk about how he's complaining about the refs every single time. I don't think that's something that is ever going to go away, quite frankly, right? But I will say this, right? The reason why I have Luca at number one, despite the standings right now, they're 6th seed right now. Well, they're
Hmm.
kind of like a half a game behind the Pelicans at
Yeah.
the 5th
Hmm.
seed. But the reason why I have him this high right now is because we all know about the offensive side. We all know about that. He
Hmm.
is a monster. He cannot be stopped.
Yeah.
He's scoring 34, well, at least 34 a game. Last night he had like 41,
Hmm.
right? It's like he's this man is constantly, making history in the record books,
Hmm.
right? He just tied LeBron James with the most points before 25,
Hmm.
right? And he's constantly getting compared to all these greats, in which I feel like at the rate he's going, he's going to be an all time great. He is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? If he keeps it up,
Hmm.
right? But I want to talk about the defensive side, right? People have been knocking about how he doesn't try on defense. He's a below average defender on defense, but I gotta say, man, you pull up the stats, all the advanced stats and stuff like that. He's been a very solid defender, man. I'm pretty sure he's one of
Yeah.
the best post defenders in the league right now, right? Just going based on the advanced stats and stuff like that. Because this man, I've watched almost every single game of the Mavs, right? And he's been trying his heart out on defense. He's actually, shuffling his feet. He's actually getting blocks. He's getting steals. He's getting tip passes and stuff like
Hmm.
that. He's actually like buying into the culture of like, yo, I'm playing defense, right?
Hmm.
Because here's the thing: as a leader, right? If you don't play defense, why should the others play defense,
Hmm.
right? But if you buy into the culture of like you're playing defense, you're hustling, you're diving for balls,
Hmm.
right? It shows that this man wants it, right?
Hmm.
And that's why I said that the acquisition of getting Kyrie, because Kyrie was doing that stuff, and then he was telling mentoring Luca a little bit on certain things, because Kyrie has been there, done that. He's won a championship. He's
Hmm.
hit clutch shots. He's been in clutch moments throughout his career, right? So
Hmm.
passing on that little mentorship towards Luca, it's been very, very helpful, especially on the defensive end, right? And like I said, I know the standing is at the end of the day is going to matter,
Hmm.
right? But you cannot tell me like I know you want to talk about Jokic, Giannis being the best players in the world, and respectfully, I say I agree,
Hmm.
right? But Luca, he's right there up there with them. He's not that far off. He is not that far off. Not that far off, man. Like I've constantly said this in our group chat. I've constantly said this to you. I've said this to many people. I don't care what anybody says, right? But when LeBron, Curry, KD, Kawhi, all
Mhm.
those guys, all superstars, Hall of Famers are finally going to age and like retire. Who's going to be the face of the league? People say it's got to be an American. I say why not a foreign man? I say it's Luca. Talking about a guy, he's 25. And I know, yes, he's mainly missing is a championship.
Mhm.
If he gets that championship, we got to be talking about him in a different light.
It's a whole
And
nother conversation. You know what
yeah,
I
it
mean?
is a whole different conversation because, mind you, he is 24.
Mhm.
He's 24, and he's not technically in his prime yet, and that's
No.
insane.
Mhm.
You imagine how good he is right now. Just
Mhm.
imagine 2, 3 more years down the line, right?
Yeah, I don't think we've seen, a guy come into the league and be this polished and be this good since LeBron, man. Like,
Yeah.
and and I wanna go back to what you said earlier, about defense, and I like the way that you phrased it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
defense is a mindset. Defense is a culture. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? If offense and defense is different, where, like, yes, there's certain, physical limitations that some players may have, or advantages some players may have when it comes to defense, but a major component of defense is effort, right? Wanting to play defense, right? Having the cardio to play both sides, especially if you're, your team's leading scorer, right? But like you said, setting that culture that it doesn't matter if you're the superstar or you're the last guy off the bench. When you step onto the court, we are playing defense. That means a hell of a lot, especially like you just said, for a guy as young as Luca, to where going forward, this would be in his blood. You know what I mean? Like, in my opinion, once you're a defensive player, you're always a defensive player, right? Because it's always going to be in your mind, right? It's the same way that once you're a bucket, until you get injuries or whatever, you're always going to be a bucket. You're always going to know how to get to the cup. So for Luca, like you said, like I feel like on a pure talent level, he definitely is of that ilk, right? The only thing he's missing is that playoff success, right? Getting to the mountaintop. If he can do that, right, now we're having a lot of different conversations, right? So uh, in my opinion, obviously, unfortunately, Embiid got hurt, so he's not a part of the conversation as for this season. But if we just talk about the three best players in the league, right, in terms of consistency, in terms of video game numbers, in terms of shit like that, like in my opinion, it has to be Giannis, Jokic, Luka. Man, those are the three
Yep.
players that come to my mind, right? And it, I feel like it's still we're still about halfway through the season, right? So we still got a big stretch to go. And how I believe a lot of these awards are handled is a lot of it is narrative driven, right? A lot
Mm-hmm.
of it is not necessarily how you start the season, but how you end it, right?
Yeah.
So you can have kind of a slow start to the season, but if the last thing in these voters' minds are you going on a dominant run towards the end of the season, especially
Mm-hmm.
if you are a player like Luca, where your team is a lower seed, right? If he's able to go on a run, the Mavs are able to go on a run where he can crack that top three seed. I feel like that's going to be the last impression that's in the voters' minds when it comes to making these decisions. And listen, that in my opinion would be the last thing in my mind, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
definitely gonna be looking forward to seeing what happens next in his last stretch of the season.
And just like really quick, as we're approaching the end of the the pod, right? But there's one guy that we haven't mentioned yet. I feel like he deserves so much love right now. The Shy
Yeah.
SGA, man. Like talking about coming from the Clippers, then getting traded in that big trade with the Paul George, right, and all that stuff, right, going to the Thunder. But man, it's worked out for the Thunder in so many good ways, man.
Mhm.
You talking about a definition of a cornerstone young player,
Mhm.
man. Like he's far and beyond what I've expected,
Oh hell
right?
yeah.
Like I feel like even the Thunder when they made that trade, they was like, yeah, we need Shea. We need him in that trade, right? But
Hmm.
I don't think even they expected for him to be this
No,
good,
not this.
right? Like, yeah, like you're talking about, he's not only getting it done on the offensive end, but he's getting it done on the defensive end now. Like, I'm pretty sure he leads the league in like average steals,
Hmm.
like I think like 2.3 steals or something like that,
Hmm.
and that's insane, right? It's talking about he's setting the tone for a young culture over there in the
Hmm.
Thunder. They have a very, very bright future. Talking about not I said Wemby, but Chet. Talking about Chet, being on that team. This is his first full year. Last year he was hurt, right?
Hmm.
This is his first full year. So, when Chet finally grows into his body, right? When, Jalen Williams, he's getting another year under his
Hmm.
belt. He's looking a solid player. And then,
Yeah.
man, don't forget about Lou Dort. Lou Dort's a great. You're talking about a 3-and-D guy. I'm talking
Hmm.
about he hustles on defense. He's and I feel like we kind of got a glimpse of him, back in the bubble when it was like the
Hmm.
Rockets versus the Thunder, right? It was him going at it with CP3, and I was
Hmm.
loving it, man. I was loving it, right? But Shea, he's on another level.
Hmm.
Like, you talking about, I feel like the top two guys is like going to make that big step. It's him and what's it called, Tyrese Halliburton, right?
Okay.
Like Halliburton, I mean, shoot, I feel like I know the Pacers, they've been on, I think they're very far down the East standings, right? But that's mainly due to him being hurt. It's
Yeah.
due to Halliburton being hurt. So who knows? I'm pretty sure if Halliburton played those games that he missed, they're definitely a playoff team in
Hmm.
my eyes because they got Siakam,
Oh yeah,
right?
they're gonna get a ticket to the dance regardless. Like that team is way too talented
Oh
offensively.
yeah.
You know what I mean, to
Mhm.
miss the playoffs, right? Unless there's some crazy unfortunate injury, but you know I mean, listen, man, like that's our five, man. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like so far, we both talked to countless amount of people, and I'm sure Kakum can attest to this. A lot of people have different top fives,
Oh
right?
yeah, 100.
A lot
percent
of people, whether it's the same players, different order. So
Yep.
we're curious to see, who are your guys' top five, right? If you have any honorable mentions, who are they, right?
Hmm.
Definitely, drop those down in the comments below, right? So, but with that being said, make sure you guys like, comment, share,
Yep.
subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Yes, sir. Peace.